When I walk into a community and I see American flags all over the community and I suddenly feel unsafe.
I stand by that.
When you say something insane and so you double down on it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent and nonpartisan analysis and commentary on news, media, internet culture, and more. We're going to check in with the lovely lady singular of The View, this time Sunny Hostin, because we discussed this previously, but she recently went viral because she made a pretty absurd rant about how she felt unsafe when she saw American flags. Yes, as in like the red, white, and blue. And of course, this such an absurd and rage-baity take was widely mocked, and people pushed back and were like, you're overthinking it, babe. A lot of those actually probably belong to racial minorities, people putting American flags outside their house, and they're not like secret white supremacists who want to get you or anything like that. And it's also funny because she lives in New York City and it's like an elite multimillionaire. So I'm sure she's walking around like the most upscale neighborhoods. She sees an American flag and she's like, there's a secret fascist living there. I feel unsafe. But so they do this podcast on The View where I guess the producer, or I don't know, whatever his title is, but one of the main people who runs the show is on there each week with one of the women who host the show. And he had Sunny Hostin on. And they discussed this viral incident. And she was like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. That was obviously absurd. What I meant to say was really this. Like, I just got it carried away. Just kidding. She didn't say anything of the sort. She doubled down and compared the American flag to the Confederate flag. Let's watch.
Let's talk about something serious, or more serious.
Okay.
Something you said last week on the show got a lot of attention. What else is new? But it was about the American flag. And this is something that you've said before, more than once, but a couple years ago you talked about it.
I've said it many times.
But it seems to get people, they get very animated.
See, that's the thing.
This.
I don't read social media
Thank God.
comments.
Yes.
As you know, I stopped years ago.
Yes.
And that's why I'm just so happy and peaceful most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll pause on that and just say, like, it's probably, as a celebrity and as somebody who's saying stupid shit and getting hate all the time, it is probably for the best that you don't read social media comments. Like, I can actually respect that as a public figure or as a journalist. However, the flip side of it is that you're also seemingly then isolating yourself from very, at times, correct pushback. And then you keep repeating the same dumb points over and over again because you're not acknowledging or even listening to any of the people pointing out how dumb they are. So there's also something to be said for not reading like random trolls and haters, but do engage with criticism or pushback that you get on your ideas, because it allows you to refine them and make them sharper. But she doesn't do that. She's just, la, 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 I just say my crazy stuff and then go home and don't look. I'm not sure that's great, but knock yourself out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's surprising to me that's it's a thing.
Let's take a listen to what it is that you said when we were talking about this.
There are times when I walk into a community and I see American flags all over the community and I suddenly feel unsafe because there's a section of this country that has co-opted the American flag and they equate being an American or an American flag with white supremacy. And that should never be the symbol of white supremacy, but they have weaponized.
Because the flag belongs to all of us.
It does belong to all of us.
So
I stand by that.
Yeah, and it's something.
Oh my gosh, you stand by that. I love how they're surprised that openly saying the American flag makes you unsafe and that it's been conflated with white supremacy is at all a hot take. Yeah, of course people are going to have an issue with that because people of all races and creeds and colors in this country love America and love our flag. And while it's certainly true that you can find like white nationalist extremists who use the American flag or whatever, that's like a tiny, tiny fraction of a percentage of its usage. It's, 99% of the time used in a totally non-racist way by normal Americans just showing pride in their country and patriotism. And for you to use that outlier example, I mean, that's like so if I found, a radical LGBTQ activist group advocating for violence with a rainbow flag, and then I see, I'm driving around a blue city and I see a bunch of coffee shops with the rainbow flag or a bunch of stores with a rainbow flag. It's like, therefore they're all violent radicals? No. Or they're all expressing support for that. And that's not how symbols can be reasonably used. And then to suggest that makes you physically unsafe is obviously absurd. Like a flag, even one that's like really offensive to you, is still not the same as any sort of physical danger. And there's just objectively, factually, statistically speaking, no correlation between seeing an American flag and somehow being in danger. I don't know, man. In fact, honestly, like in terms of everyday crime or whatever, a nice neighborhood where people are flying American flags probably is safer than average. Like, I what? I don't know. But yeah, I double down on it. Yeah, of course you do, Sunny. Anyway, let's keep going here.
It's something you've said and been very consistent about, and I've heard it from other people of color for sure.
Well, I was going to say what's interesting is
God.
that this is not a new conversation amongst the Black community, in the Black community.
I hate when they do this and they pretend that their niche radical views espoused by their other Black leftist friends are somehow representative of like the Black community. That is not the case. That is simply not true. All across this country, millions of Black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and white people and all sorts of different colors of people love the American flag and fly the American flag. And even if they don't personally fly it, aren't threatened by it or don't feel unsafe because of it. That's not a thing. I even went and tried to find some data about this. And from YouGov, even Black Americans, while they are slightly less likely than white Americans to feel comfortable in a neighborhood with lots of U.S. flags on display, only a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, less than 1 in 5 Black people feels uncomfortable in a neighborhood with lots of American flags. This is like a super minority fringe opinion, not shared by the vast, vast majority of Black people. And she's like, in the Black community, this is what we say. No, you just hang out with other leftist, radical, probably elite class Black people, and you're conflating that with the views of the Black community. No, not true, not accurate, not correct. Can't say that's surprising coming from Sunny Hostin, but it's still frustrating. Now, I think we're about to get to the part that frustrated me exponentially. Let's listen. Yeah, because you haven't even seen me frustrated yet. Let's watch.
It's something that we talk about. It's, there was a point when, and I think I've talked about it on the show, I was visiting friends in North Carolina in the Outer Banks, and they rented a house there, and they had been there many times, a white couple, and on the beach, it's a beach that you can drive cars on. I was walking with the kids, they were pretty young, and there was a Confederate flag. And I was nervous. Okay. I'm in the South. I've got these 2 kids with me. I look the way that I look, and I'm walking past a Confederate flag with a group of dudes in a pickup truck on the beach. And I scurried back to the house and I said to the host, do you know that there's a Confederate flag out there? It didn't feel great.
So hang on. That's a totally different flag and a totally different situation. So you were asked about your insane take about the American flag, and then you pivot to recounting an anecdote about a totally different flag that represents the opposite of the American flag, right? Because the Confederacy revolted against America to fight to try to preserve slavery. What? I have a totally different view about that situation. Now, I don't know that it necessarily meant she was unsafe, but I completely understand why a Black person would be uncomfortable seeing someone flying the Confederate flag, which you can spare me your Southern pride, whatever. It's associated with the people that fought to preserve slavery. And I'm sorry, but it is perfectly reasonable that a Black person would see that flag and feel uncomfortable. Now, you have the right to fly it. It's freedom of speech. I understand. but it's totally fair that a black person would see that and be uncomfortable. Like that somebody would be flying a flag associated with the brutal, vicious enslavement of their ancestors and people that look like them. But that has nothing to do with the American flag. What? That's totally different. So why would you say that? That wasn't your original statement at all that people had an issue with. If all you'd said on the show was you felt uncomfortable when people flew Confederate flags, I wouldn't have criticized that. Nobody would have disagreed, or maybe a few people, but it wouldn't have gotten like widespread pushback or traction. You're talking about the American flag. And then your explanation is about a totally different flag in a totally different context. That's not a defense of your original statement. That's called the Mott and Bailey routine, right? Where you make a really extreme statement, then when you're pressed on it and you have to try to explain yourself, you retreat to something infinitely less extreme. It's like, well, then defend your original statement or retract it. Those are the options. Because otherwise you're like, it's a form of subtle gaslighting by staking out a position and then when asked to defend it, pivoting to defending something else that's more defensible and then acting like you've defended your original statement. It's also called moving the goalposts, right? Like you're trying to kick a field goal into the big yellow sticks. Me with my football knowledge. Yeah, bro, I'm a huge football guy. And then, but there's people holding the thing up and they keep moving as you're trying to kick. It's like, how can we have a conversation when you are totally changing the goalposts of what we're talking about in a way that's just clearly meant to like shift the ground to deflect from your original insanity? I don't know. I found this maddening and extremely disingenuous. It is still absurd and ridiculous to claim the American flag makes you unsafe and pivoting to factually incorrect generalizations about the black community, or switching the topic entirely to the Confederate flag. None of that is at all a good defense of your terrible take, and you'd be better served by just admitting you were wrong, or admitting you were just rage baiting and trolling and you knew it would upset people, so you just wanted to go viral, even though you totally don't look at the comments. Either way, just be honest about it. Don't, as I often say, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Okay? Well, really, just don't pee on my leg at all. I don't know, guys. That's my take on this strange situation that Sunny has decided to double down on. What a strange hill to die on. But that's her choice. It's what she's decided to do. And that's up to her, I guess. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't yet. Hit the like button while you're at it. Do consider becoming a channel member. It is unfortunately on political YouTube or on cable news, or just it's actually not cable. It's just broadcast, but still TV news. The best way to make millions of dollars and become very popular is just to pander to one side, to one extreme. But I don't do that. I try to be independent and honest, and in return, I do need support from viewers like you. So do become a channel member if you can. Hit the join button or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And with that, guys, we'll be back with more real soon.